This is our November Gate Equity webinar, and we're talking about ninth grade success and getting the most out of advisory. My name is Kathy Anderson. I'm the OSPI Graduation Equity Program Supervisor, and I also lead ninth grade success work here. We chose this topic because advisory can be a huge support to student success, offering students time to get caught up on academics, learn study skills, as well as tune up school culture and connect with caring adults. Sends a really clear message that you care and you want students to experience success. Advisory time is also really useful for tiered supports. So think about having whole class assemblies, motivational speakers, but also offering things like social emotional groups or counseling or mentor check-ins. There's a real wealth of options available that won't interrupt a student's school day. This webinar is brought to you through OSPI. So all students are prepared for post-secondary pathways, careers, and civic engagement is our vision. And it's through the Office of System and School Improvement, where we're striving to help schools that we have identified. And we do have an equity statement that we've developed that we think helps frame our webinars. We believe each student, family, and community possesses strengths and cultural knowledge that benefit their peers, educators, and schools. And in our leadership role, we examine the ways that current policies and practices result in disparate outcomes for our students and work to intentionally consider historical contexts, ways to partner in decision-making, and ways to dismantle systemic barriers so that the students in our schools can access instruction and support. And here at Get Equity Webinar, we want to help you do that. A super fun fact is OSPI has a YouTube channel now. We are trying to get 500 subscribers so we can get even more cool communication tools. So it's a great way to keep in the know about what's happening, what videos we're putting out. If you want to subscribe, you can do that. And each month you'll get alerts for when these webinars are posted. It's worthwhile to sign up. So we do want you to walk away with some objectives for today. We want you to understand the high leverage ninth grade foundational practices behind an effective advisory. And we're going to show you some examples of structure and content that you might adopt. And we're super lucky to have Chelan High School staff with us here so that you can learn from a district about how they're implementing advisory. And of course, we have resources to get you started. I'm joined today by Brad Wilson, and he is a principal at Chelan High School, and Dia Galvin, Todos United Club Advisor and School District Family and Community Liaison from Chelan School District. Next month, we're going to be talking about youth voice and the science of hope. We have a national researcher coming, Chan Hellman, and he's going to be talking about the key indicators of student hope. It is measurable, super cool stuff. And these links will be in the chat if you want to get signed up or if you know somebody who could benefit from participating. I'm sure that you are wondering, so why should we care about advisory? Master scheduling is this really amazing tool to make time to support students. And Washington schools host a variety of advisory programs that are super different in structure and in content. So advisory is sometimes worth credit, sometimes it's not. And you can use it in your school to fill needs that aren't being met anywhere else in your schedule. I want to ground this work in a little bit of our results from our Healthy Youth Survey. You can access these results at a school level as an administrator if you're a principal, or at various levels publicly for if you want to look at askhys.net, they are worth checking out. I grabbed the results from a couple of questions that I think relate to advisory that you could look at too. So here's some results from our 8th graders that are now the current class of 9th graders. 80% said there are lots of chances for students in their school to talk with a teacher one-on-one, which is pretty good. 72% reported that they knew an adult at their school who will help them if they need it. And 71% said they were not completely looking forward to the future, which is kind of sad. And only 64% said that when they have a problem, they can come up with a lot of different ways to solve it, most or all the time. And more than half, 62%, said that over the past year, they didn't usually enjoy being in school. So reading through these results, I think careful advisory planning could do a lot to change these percentages for students so that they're having more fun and they're getting more connected to their school community. I said before that the structure for advisory varies a lot from building to building. So I want to share with you some things that might help you add structure to your advisory program. First thing, preparing advisors with professional learning, coaching, and content can help you a lot with implementation. A lot of teachers might think this is extra. Making sure that it's a part of the way that we do things, that it has that ownership, that we all know why it's important. You may think that the purpose of advisory is super intuitive, but teachers are super busy folks. And so you can make it the easy choice by providing them with grade and attendance reports each week, offering them fun videos to spur discussion, and by making your student tracking system really easy. You can offer a variety of resources so that students don't groan when it's time for an advisory lesson. These can be really great conversation starters about how students can impact their school environment and make a difference in the community. Offering options beyond study hall like gym or clubs can help students grow those relationships. And if you're using data to have targeted conversations with students, this is a great time to gather them for focus groups. For an example, an administrator might pull together a group of students and ask them about their opinions on the supports they're offering and what kind of supports they would want or incentives would motivate them the most. The most important thing is that the time is so flexible, so you can really use it to offer whatever you've designed to help the students that are right in front of you, and make sure that that time is in addition to Tier 1 content, not in place of it. So some advisory content big ideas. There's 3 big ones that I want to share with you. We often see these in advisory classes: social emotional learning and restorative justice. Those help students establish their own self-knowledge and find opportunities to act as leaders with school culture. Advisory lessons can be used to build coping strategies and bring students closer together. A primary focus of many advisories is giving that academic support, and that's in varying ways. But this category can also tap into training students on study skills, giving them some awareness of their class standing, maybe using helpful progress monitoring things like attendance and grade checks. Another common strategy that we see out there is our state is looking at that college and career readiness through things like high school and beyond plans. A lot of schools offer credit because of that, especially for the work around that, thinking about our identities, where they want to be, who they want to become. So varying that content by grade level, you may ask students to do really useful things like fill out resumes and applications. Advisory can also be a great time for clubs or sports to have meetings and meet up, and I think that Lake Chelan's going to talk a little bit more about that. And when those meetings are baked into the school day, more kids have access. And being a part of a club or a sport really does grow a student's feelings of connection to the school. And it's a great opportunity to build those strong relationships so that they know that somebody in their sphere cares about them. I'm providing a list of some sample supports, and I just want to point out, like, every school is different and they're going to depend on the students you have in front of them. So I don't want to read them all to you, but they are going to be available in the slides. I do want to point out that a strong Tier 1 will help you get more precise in your Tier 2 and 3. And at the heart of it, I mean, we're really talking about creating fertile ground for relationships to grow. Many schools struggle when to offer a Tier 2 support without interrupting that student's day and eating into those other classes. And advisory is a really great time to offer those. So having said that, some Tier 2 examples might be offering a counselor-led advisory so that students who need a little bit of a higher touch have that daily, or pulling students for questions that you want feedback, like a focus group. That's a good time for that. You can run your school improvement goals by these kids, or ask them what they think is going on and what they think the grade issues are to cover. And I do want to put in a plug for flex scheduling. Advisory can be offered any time of the day, and there are benefits and drawbacks to each one. And I know some schools put it in place first period to support the students who are getting there a little bit late. Some offer it before lunch, so if students need extra support, they can get sack lunches brought to them so they can get even more time to work, but it all depends on your school's preferences. I do want to hand it off to Brad, just to give a little bit of background. Brad is the principal at Chelan High School, and he's been working on 9th grade success through a variety of different opportunities in the past few years, and he's done really intentional work around advisory. He posed our homework question today about how's your advisory helping you to accomplish your school improvement goals, and he's brought with him Dia Galvin. So welcome, Brad. Do you guys want to tell us a little bit more about your school and your district?
Yeah, we're in North Central Washington at Chelan High School. There's some of our demographic data. Again, I'm the principal here, and Dia Galvan is our many things. She's a club advisor and a family community liaison. Really works closely with both our parents and our teachers and kids, and she's also a migrant graduation specialist. So as you're in a small school out there, I'm sure you understand people doing multiple jobs, and she's the epitome of that. You know, we work hard like Kefi talked about on ninth grade success. One of our school goals is that 100% of our kids graduate. We realize that's a lofty goal, but we'd really rather try to do the work on the front end as soon as our students are coming into high school, instead of always trying to play catch up as our main intervention for students at risk and not graduating. Our student performance is up there, just like everybody. I'm not going to tell you that that's the be all end all, but I also realize it matters. So, we want to, anytime we're measuring how our kids are achieving, that's an important part for us too, which is why academics is part of our advisory program, right along with social emotional learning and college and career readiness. We talked about, if you're going to do something in your school, time's precious, and it's really important that what you're doing is working towards your goals. We have a goal of 80% of our kids going on to post-secondary education, and we did our accreditation school study process that bounced back and forth over the years between 60 and 70% of our kids. So we really want to try to increase that and be getting 80% of our students going on to post-secondary education or training. And so we feel like spending college and career readiness time in advisory really helps that. Our climate and culture, we want our students to be, communicators and collaborators and have creativity, just have a real accepting culture where that's possible. And we think by having club meetings and doing some things that DL talk about during our advisory, it really enhances that and makes kids feel like they belong. And if they feel like they belong, they're going to be much more willing to do those high-end 21st century skills like work together, communicate, show their creativity. And then I spoke a little bit about the graduation piece, which goes along with the student achievement and making sure that students are successful academically. We don't ignore that just because we're working on the other pieces during advisory. As a rural district, we do feel like advisory and what we're trying to do has special implication. A lot of our students have never seen a big city like you see there on the left or a huge college campus. So if we can't paint that picture for them and help them understand what that might be like, take them on trips, get them thinking and talking about going on to a post-secondary campus, they're not going to be able to envision that all by themselves when they've never seen it or never set foot on a place. So we just think that's really important that we spend time during our school day helping them understand what that's like and making that become a possibility for them. In the middle there, we don't have tutoring centers or many options for kids to get extra academic support after school. We have some small offerings that we're able to do, but really the kids that struggle and need the most attention, they have jobs after school that they have to be at. They have to care for siblings. They might live 20 miles away. So we can give extra support somehow during the school day, that's going to be a difference maker to them. So we feel like trying to give some of that academic support and have it available during advisory is really important for students that may live really far from our campus as being a rural district. And then, on the right there, just the electronic age and the screen time that kids are into. And that's not necessarily a rural piece, but when you live really, really remotely, like many of our students do, your chances for human interaction outside the school day, I think, are a little bit lower than maybe if you're in an urban setting and naturally around a lot of people your age in the hours after school. So by really encouraging involvement during our advisory time and our club program, I think it helps pull kids into that personal connection that's going to make it much more likely that they're a successful student. So as a rural district, advisory is vital to what we need to try to do to connect with rural students and help them be successful. Some challenges, it's not an easy, quick win having a decent advisory program. It's an ongoing challenge. Number one is just the realization it's a big investment. For us, it's 30 minutes, 4 days a week. And we don't have advisories on Mondays because we have late start professional development time. So we just go right through the rest of our schedule during that time. But every other day we have 30 minutes. We want to make sure that time's valuable for staff and students. If not, then there's going to be questions about should we be using this time better. And then just constantly trying to identify our needs. Kefi mentioned the Healthy Youth Survey. That's always great for information. Academic reports, our DNF list, our achievement scores, pieces like that are key for showing us where we need extra support academically and on the individual academic basis, student by student. Then our college and career readiness, we talked about wanting to elevate that 70% to 80% of the number of kids going on to post-secondary. We want kids looking at a variety of different careers. We've really tried to emphasize opening kids' eyes to the two-year options and the tech school options out there. I think a challenge is always going to be staff variation. For our advisory program, we don't roll the advisors up year after year. Many years ago here they did. We've gone away from that. One reason being that, teachers, everybody's on a different level as an advisor, just like they are as an instructor. So there's some key points where we want people to really become experts. And if somebody becomes really good at knowing what freshmen need to fit in and be supported academically, then it makes sense to us to keep them as a freshman advisor. Person's an expert at getting kids applying for scholarships and accessing post-secondary application processes, then it makes sense that maybe they stay as a senior advisor. We do have some rotation from year to year where people will move around a little, but that's not with the same group of kids. For us, we just feel like that's a strength in what works best. And also, I think because of our school size, kids can maintain a relationship with their advisor if they form that great relationship. Even if they're not in their advisory the next year, they're still going to see them every single day in our hallway and throughout our school, and likely have them for teachers in classes because we only have a staff of about 30. But you're also not guaranteed that every teacher is going to deliver the advisory curriculum or activities exactly the same. So spending time trying to work towards that cohesiveness is really important. So our focus areas, like we've mentioned, we really are trying to focus on social emotional learning during advisory and creating a sense of belonging. I think that's super important, especially for our freshmen, then our college and career readiness and students' academic performance. So we don't go all in on any one area, try to vary the focus between those three, which I think helps keep it fresh for staff and kids. It's not like we're just pulling out a canned lesson day after day that's not going to engage our students. Some supports we use that we've developed and find really effective is when we're having social emotional learning or discussions, I think it's extremely helpful to have videos to prompt that discussion instead of just a list of cold questions that you're bringing to try to have a discussion with an advisory class. When there's a prompt for them to work from or watch first, it creates much richer discussion. Utilize our Skyward, grade system. Our registrar has it set up where every advisor gets a report automatically emailed to them of all their students' grades at the start of every week, so they have the most up-to-date academic data right in front of them, and then they don't have to go, pull each kid up on Skyward individually to see how they're doing. They have that right at their fingertips so that they can connect with students who may be showing some slippage or need to make up a test or something like that. And I think anything you can do to make that easier for teachers is really going to enhance your program because it's going to be less labor intensive. And then we have a universal 5-year plan or a high school beyond plan that the kids start working on in middle school, and we spend time on that. And that 5-year plan is the centerpiece for our student-led conferences, which advisors oversee twice a year for each of their students. And we've made that the centerpiece instead of a PowerPoint or simply checking in on current grades. We really try to have consistent conversations around students' 5-year plan, what courses they're going to take, what their strengths are, and what they're seeing for their future, and then modify that as they go through their high school career. Some more targeted supports is our clubs. We have a variety of clubs available that we'll talk about a little bit. I think we're up to 13 or so. Some of those are CTE competitive clubs like FBLA, FFA, FCCLA, but others are just totally student interest generated where they've wanted a club for a topic they're interested in and found a teacher that'll support them as an advisor and started that club per our ASB Constitution. I think that's great because you're responding to student voice and student interest when you give them the freedom to create some clubs. We'll also have our counselor do some small group work during that. Last year we had a really effective group with a group of young males that seemed to be a little bit aimless in their academic pursuits, and they worked hard on goal setting and taking steps to break goals down and try to achieve those goals, and that worked well for that group of students. We'll have students constantly accessing their teachers for subject level assistance. At times we've scheduled specific students with teachers in areas they're struggling in to make sure they get that extra support in, for example, an algebra, a geometry class. And then we have a variety of college admissions counselors visit the school, and we always try to schedule those during advisory so students are not missing core class time to go hear from a admissions advisor from Whitworth or the University of Washington, or of course Washington State University, like everybody should hear from other schools. So that really works well, and I think it makes kids way more likely to go and attend those and hear about college admissions from a specific university or college if they don't have to give up their lunchtime or they don't have to give up their class time. That happens during advisory. And then we constantly have one-on-one meetings going on during advisory too. DIA, family community liaison, and migrant graduation specialist is great about trying to pull kids during advisory and really use that time so they're not missing class time, especially if it's a student that's already struggling. You don't want to make that situation worse by pulling them out of the class they're struggling in. Our counselor meets with kids. If we as administration have the need to meet with students around discipline or attendance, advisory is a great time to have some quick hitter meetings, for some lower level pieces, and then get that taken care of without the student missing class time. Our advisory setup, I think just like anything, your processes and procedures are really important. If that builds trust in the system with kids and teachers when they know that there's some accountability. I think maybe you heard teachers, talk about the desire for accountability a time or two and things like this, and it's the same for us. So we talked about how we keep our advisors at the same grade each year so they understand what that grade level needs to be accomplishing. And we use a pass system where we ask the teachers to give the students a pass with their destination on it if they need to go talk to another teacher. If we have a club meeting, the club advisor takes attendance at that meeting and sends that out so that our attendance secretary and advisors know that students who said they were going to a club meeting followed through and went there. And then a big change that really helped us add some accountability to our structure this year is moving our advisory between our first and second period classes as opposed to before lunch. Especially students at our school, juniors and seniors, have the privilege to leave campus at lunch, and it's pretty tempting sometimes, I think, for kids to try to extend their lunchtime by getting an early start during advisory when we had advisory right before lunch. And I also think, we didn't want to do it at the start of the day or right at the end of the day. So putting it between two of our core instructional periods brought a lot more structure to it and a lot more accountability, and lowered students' desire to take advantage of that time. Another piece that helps us accountability-wise and organizationally is we're trying to be very clear that Tuesdays are sacred, that we're not going to have club meetings during Tuesday, that the students are going to be in their advisory class with their advisors on Tuesday, reviewing their academics. If we want to do some social emotional content work, that way we can guarantee that every student's going to get it. Students are not in advisory because of club meetings. That doesn't become a guaranteed curriculum anymore. So we try to keep those Tuesdays, very interruption free, unless we're meeting with the entire grade level as administration to go over an important topic or, speak to the group about something, then we'll pull an entire grade level. But otherwise, we want students with their advisors on Tuesday so we know that everybody's getting what the plan is for that day. And we have a variety of tools we use on those days that are kind of our tier one, what all students get. And again, a key part of making those Tuesdays effective for reviewing academic progress is the fact that all the advisors get the grades auto-emailed to them each week, so it's not labor intensive to talk to students about their grades. We also use our advisory time if we want to have an assembly of any type, do some recognition. Just today, we announced our drawing winners from our October Excellence Month, for example. We had a challenge for kids to miss one or fewer days and have one or fewer tardies during October. Everybody that met that went into a drawing, and we gave out some prizes. So we're able to do something like that during advisory, call their names over the loudspeaker, have them come down to the office area and pick up their prize. It's a good way to recognize kids and do so without interrupting our core instructional time. We try to have one spirit assembly per quarter where we recognize athletic teams or clubs or academic excellence. If we have guest speakers, we schedule them during advisory time, and we'll borrow a little time from first and second period on either end if we need more than a half hour. That works well for us. So it allows us to have an assembly or to have, like a state send-off like we'll be doing for our volleyball team on Thursday without having kids miss one of their core classes. Teachers, I think, really appreciate that as well, and it helps build support for those things you want to do when people don't feel like we're giving up a ton of class time to do so. We'll also, like I mentioned, have meetings with entire grade levels. Like if we want to do an anti-vaping campaign, instead of trying to do that with the whole school, wouldn't be very effective, we don't feel. And also, we just don't have the time or resources to go to every single advisory class, but we can meet with 100 kids or so that we have in each grade level to get the group size down, have a little bit more of a personalized conversation. I meet with our seniors periodically through the year, planning what they need to get done as far as graduation supply orders, preparing for senior presentations, some of those pieces. And if we want to do any recognition for meeting expectations, we could do so. Or if we need to have a discussion that we feel needs to happen with a large group of students, advisory's ideal to do that. I think anytime we want to reference a situation, we try to make sure and reference data when we're meeting with a group of kids, even if it's the senior class, and even if we're meeting about grad supply orders or upcoming senior presentations, we try to highlight some success data. How many seniors have over a 3.0, students that have had excellence attendance, and let them know that, we're paying attention to the positive as well, and reference that when we have students together. Big piece of our advisory, and I think it fits right along with the social emotional learning, is to make students social emotionally, effective. They need to feel like they are involved. By having some of our club meetings during advisory, it really helps students want to access those clubs and take part in something. We tell our freshmen they're required to join a club or a sport. We don't punish them if they don't do so, but we think that's the expectation. We have a club fair where all of our clubs have tables in the commons at the start of the year, and all our freshmen and sophomores visit that to try to get a feel and become aware of what clubs are out there. We don't deal with athletics during advisory. We just keep it to clubs. If our sports need to meet for any reason or do any of that work, that can happen during lunch or after school, we feel like. And our clubs do not meet on Tuesdays. As I talked about earlier, that's sacred time for tier 1 social emotional work or academic check-ins. Just to give you an example of a club that we have that started due to student interest and the willingness of a staff member to be an advisor, and has really helped us involve a historically underrepresented, underinvolved population group in our school, is we have Dia Galvan here, our Todos United Club advisor, to tell you the story of how Todos United started, and why it's so important that we have that be able to take place during advisory for getting students involved. So I'm going to turn it over to Dia.
The Todos United Club advisor at Chelan High School, and the club mission is to promote cultural awareness in our schools and community. And I think this is our 5th year with the club, and it was initiated by students themselves, especially students that weren't born in the U.S. that felt like something was missing in the school, and they presented to the ASD and came up with this idea of this club, and it's just really blossomed. And I feel really fortunate that I'm able to be their advisor, especially for the students that aren't fluent in English just yet, but just seeing them thrive and participating in different events. We just had our Dia de los Muertos festivities 2 weekends ago. It was a community event, so we really feel like it's important to not just promote cultural awareness in our school buildings, but also in our community. So we worked with the Historic Downtown Chelan Association to do face painting at the festival. The kids helped create altar, an ofrenda in downtown, and they also went to different classrooms at the elementary and did flower making at the elementary, and those flowers were used for the ofrendas downtown. So that was really exciting. They're doing lots of different projects. We just had a group of students go to the CASH conference at WCAN this last weekend. Clubs are really essential, I feel like, to get students to go to universities. The students that went will be presenting to a school board and express how important that conference was and student participation in conferences. So that's really exciting. Seeing student participation during advisory is very essential for success of different clubs, because our students have to participate in sports or work after school or take care of siblings. It's really hard to get them to do anything after school. So time during advisory is very important. Even during lunch, most of my students in Todos United are low income, and sometimes food scarcity is a problem, so we don't want to take that time away from them. if there's something that needs to be done every once in a while during that time, that's okay. But we as advisors try to not take that time away from them, and I think that's important. We want to make sure that they're fed and that they're able to participate during class, and that's important. And I was also a student here in Chelan that was low income, and participating in clubs was really important in my success and being able to participate or go to college. I was involved in FFA and an international club and med club. And if I didn't have the opportunity to go to those club meetings during advisory, I probably wouldn't have been able to participate. Those clubs also sent me off to a couple of conferences at WSU. And that was the reason why I wanted to attend WSU when I graduated from high school. I think I can speak all of the club advisors that we're really blessed and thankful for administrators to give us this time to work with our students.
Just like our athletic teams when it comes to eligibility as far as going to events or field trips that they might be going to. So it also encourages students to make sure they're keeping their academics in order and being successful. And I think Dia would probably agree that, some of our students may not do as well as they do academically if there wasn't a club to help hold them accountable. They really want to belong, they want to fit in, they want to go on these trips and take part in these activities, so they do the academic work to make sure they stay eligible. So you heard there a specific example, and I think that's true for a majority of our clubs, is that having it during advisory enables kids to go to meetings, it gets them to try something new, and it builds that belonging that's so important when it comes to the student's social emotional well-being, and promotes academic success, which we want for each of our students. So we feel like our advisory time really is supporting our school goals. I think that's a great way to build buy-in with staff. It's not just something extra, it's not free time. It's very visible and very intentional that things are going on that support your school goals. People are going to get on board, people are going to do their very best, they're going to place value on it. Also referencing the data, we share our Healthy Youth Survey data with staff. We share our perception data about students feeling connected to an adult in the building, or students treating each other respectfully. When we have red flags come up, we feel like advisory is a great time to create solutions and not just talk about the problem or complain about, what isn't happening or data that we're not satisfied with, but it gives us a chunk of time that we are in control of to take action, and then you can support your academics and your post-secondary data and really try to impact that by targeting in what you want to use. Talked about the importance of systems, making sure it's not a free-for-all, having a pass system, keeping track of kids. And then I think a strength of ours, instead of worrying, well, we're not doing one thing consistently, I think having it mixed up really keeps it fresh for kids. I mean, kids want to be engaged, they want to be entertained a little bit, and when it's not the same old, I think they're going to respond better and feel a freshness, not like they're just being forced fed a canned curriculum that we said we're going to do every day in advisory. I also think it's really important that we spend time on this with staff if we want it to be important. So it's really common at one of our staff meetings each month that we'll talk about what we're doing in advisory, that we'll share a resource, we'll look at it together as a staff, discuss the value. I mean, we've been doing student-led conferences at Chelan High School since well before I was the principal here, but we still look at our format, talk about what we're going to do with our students in advisory and how those student-led conferences will work, what tools we're going to use. We do that twice a year before each round of student-led conferences to make sure that everybody's on board and that we're doing what's best and what's going to have the best impact for students and families. So you got to create that time when you're all together to talk about and take a look in detail about what's going on during advisory if you want people to value it and carry it out with some fidelity. As a leader, I really try to say yes. I mean, you have somebody that wants to start a club or, somebody that wants to bring in a guest speaker or an activity, having that chunk of time that I know, wow, I'm not going to reduce all the entire school's, core content, instructional and learning time, but we have this advisory team. It gives a little freedom to say yes and to maybe take some risks and go ahead and try some things. Last year, a new club was Dance Club that came out of the idea that students didn't really go to dances or feel comfortable if they were a Latino student dancing to non-Latino music, or that non-Latino students didn't feel comfortable dancing when we played Latin music. Well, part of that was because they didn't understand the different styles of music or dances. So
one of our teachers wanted to help support that and wanted to start a dance club where students learned a variety of dances to different types of music. And that was really successful. And we saw the difference at our dances when more students were participating and felt comfortable. So that was just somebody with an idea that we were able to say yes to because we had that advisory time to use. And then when things are successful, we try to share those successes. If a club does an awesome activity like the Todos United Club being part of a downtown celebration and being the lead student group on that, we'll talk about that at a staff meeting. You know, if FFA goes off and does a tremendous job at cattle judging, we're going to share that success out. People need to hear the successes that are coming because of advisory, or if there's a great conversation about breaking cliques down at school and what helps that, we want to share that out and just, you know, create that shared belonging and that value in what's going on. So our process is just, we're always trying to listen. Both myself as a leader, our club advisors, our teachers, we're trying to listen to each other. We're listening to students as ideas come up, and then trying to identify what needs come out of that. And then, like I mentioned, we try to say yes and take action. Feel like, especially with advisory, it's okay to have a little more, you know, risk or a little, what can we lose type of attitude, because it's not during our core instructional time. And if it doesn't go great or it doesn't work out, then we'll scrap it and move on. But I think it definitely promotes some healthy risk taking when it comes to those social emotional discussions or guest speakers, assemblies, or out of the box ideas. Okay, I was going to talk about a couple resources real quick off of this slide, if that's all right. So some resources that are really helpful that I would recommend maybe checking out. If there's things we need to fund or people to help during advisory, you know, LAP funding, if you're doing it for academic intervention, is available to support some of the pieces we use during advisory. And then as far as those social emotional conversations, we feel our best go-to right now are the Harbor videos by Mike Smith, which come via Jostens. I think you can use Jostens for any of your graduation supplies, or if you don't, I think you can work with them to get a password. But, you know, Mike Smith is a nationally renowned speaker. He's visited our school twice. He has a athletic background, a skateboarding background. He's started multiple nonprofits. So a real servant leader that the kids really relate to, and he does a nice job of framing some social emotional topics in a way that really gets our kids talking and learning. Mentioned the automatic grade emails as being key for the academic conversations with kids in advisory. And then our college and career readiness, I really like the WCAN or the WCAN.org. You can check that out. But they really have a nice set of resources. It's not worksheets that, you know, for kids to do, but they're some just discussion prompts, but they have them broken up by month, by grade level. So we try to continually push those out to teachers to remind them to be having those conversations with students about, here's how you plan for college when you're a freshman and sophomore, here's where to look and what finances really look like. And as you're getting into that junior, senior year, what's going to make you an attractive scholarship applicant or an applicant to a college of your choice? Why is it important to take the PSAT and the SAT? You know, what should you be doing, you know, to prepare yourself to be a post-secondary student? Really like the WCAN resources for that, and the kind of one-pagers they have that teachers can use as a centerpiece for having those discussions once a month with their grade level advisory. Letting you take it back over from there.
Thank you guys so much for sharing with us what you're doing in the advisory classes. When teacher accountability was low, how did you go about getting their buy-in? And I think you touched on that a little bit, but maybe you had other stuff to add.
Kind of teacher accountability for believing in it. I think sharing successes is important, but making teachers believe that we're going to work hard as advisors or we're going to work hard as administrators to keep track of kids and hold them accountable so they're not just using it as free time. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you and say, you know, 450 kids every second of every advisory are, you know, pouring all their effort into what they should be. But if advisors are on board for, you know, having conversations with kids, making them check their academics, making them follow through and go where they say they're going to go. And I think, you know, that builds belief in the staff around that. And also, I think we try to be really transparent. You know, if a kid's knocking it out of the park and doing awesome academically, they have a little extra free time because they have their house in order, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I think it's a natural reward for doing a great job. Whereas advisors, certainly know who's struggling from those grade reports and can, be on kids to make sure that any available amount of time they're getting their homework done, which I think is a great equity equalizer, is giving kids some time during the day where they can study or do some homework if maybe what they have going outside the school day isn't really conducive for that. So if it's a study hall type of time during advisory, I think that's a fine expectation if there's not a whole group activity that's going on.
Well, and something else that you had said to me about it was that you showed your data to them, and that created a lot of buy-in because you could see the difference as you were more intentional, right? And do you want to talk a little bit about your PASS system? Someone's asking about how did you get teachers to actually use the PASS system?
Our attendance secretary is awesome about sending out friendly or not so friendly reminders if they're not being used, but teachers are great too if they care about accountability. Them calling and following up to make sure a student made it where they're supposed to go really helps. And then as administrators, being out in the hallway during that advisory time, making sure there's not students just wandering and they're getting where they're supposed to be is definitely a help. And I get it, we're a smaller school, so associate principal and myself aren't trying to patrol 10 hallways and 1,200 kids. We got 2 main areas of the school pretty much, maybe 3, but between the 2 of us wandering around, and you can identify pretty quick if somebody's not where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, and I think in a larger school you could use paras, right?
Yeah, and if a teacher simply pokes their head out in the hall, they're going to see there's not kids wandering around during our advisory period. So that, to me, that's an indicator they're where they need to be and doing what they're supposed to do.
We did get another question. So who's responsible for creating the content for your advisory classes? What does that look like?
Our counselors this year have really taken the lead on getting out social emotional learning discussions. So I'd say, but I try to push out reminders to use the WCAN materials for college and career readiness. And our college and career coordinator coordinates all the college admissions visits and other, like tomorrow we're doing a scholarship training during advisory for every senior on what will make them an attractive scholarship applicant. So I guess it's a collaborative partnership between administration, our guidance counselor, and our college and career coordinator.
The migrant graduation specialist, I really appreciate having the advisory time, and I think most school districts have a migrant graduation specialist in their district, but most of my students in my cohort are first generation, and seniors during this time getting their WASPA and FAFSA done is really important. So even though we only have 30 minutes in advisory, it's just important to get the students started on their application. So sometimes I'll have like 3 or 4 students in my office with their Chromebooks and just helping them through the process. And whereas we definitely don't want to take time away from core subject, this time is really important for that.
That's really cool that you guys can do that level of support, especially with something that is that important to where you're going next. I did want to talk a little bit about, we did assign and link to this cool rubric that we had Brad take a look at, and I think that he thought it was okay. It has some categories that might be of interest to you, so if you want to beef up your advisory, you can kind of look in at things like the role of your administrator, what's your calendar like, and do you have student advisors that are involved, and are the teachers involved in this as well? Some programs have parent participation even to talk about what they want to see in there. It's a really cool resource, and it's based on those evidence-based best practices, so it's worth checking out. And Brad, you talked a little bit about this WCAN, different kind of not lessons, but sheets from them about what the timeline is and getting ready for those kind of pivotal moments each month. And something I wanted to point out about these that's really cool is that they're available in multiple languages. They're sorted by grade level, so they are pretty specific, and you can really reach that specific audience. At OSPI, we do always want to connect you with a person, so if you do want to reach out, we can do that. Of course, you can always also talk to me or Brad or Dia. We love to get questions from people and offer you what assistance we can. Our images are from the Noun Project for the most part. and we try to keep our stuff in the Creative Commons. We do have some just discussion questions for the chat. Thanks again for joining us for Gate Equity webinar, and we'll see you next month for student engagement and the Science of Hope.